Most people think courage means pushing through fear when you need to force yourself to do something in a dangerous situation or finding the energy to do something that seems impossible in the middle of an emergency. But sometimes the fears that need to be faced aren't so obvious on the outside. They're showing up because you're standing at the edge of something inside yourself that you haven't really looked at yet, or something that still needs to be learned, or a problem that still needs to be processed. And that's when courage can be even harder to find, because it feels like there's no great big courageous act on your part that can solve the problem. And it doesn't really matter if it's something old or something new in your inner world. Whether it's something that's been buried or lost or hidden, or something that you've never had to face before, if it feels uncertain, and especially if it feels like you're facing the unknown, it can be scary. And your brain was made to react to that. It treats the unknown like a threat, and that triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response. And so very often the first instinct is to run, to avoid it, and stay where things feel familiar. And not because you're weak or lazy, but because your brain is trying to protect you. But the big question for us is, how can you really protect yourself or run away from you? How do you run away from your own thoughts and feelings? And the same goes for the automatic tendency to look for the fight. Anger often flares as a defense mechanism, even when it's uncalled for, and even if you're just fighting against yourself. That's a war that you really can't win. What you avoid doesn't usually go away. If it's still got your attention, and especially if there's a lot of emotion and energy attached to it, it's probably just going to keep getting louder. Even if that's just happening behind the scenes, even if that's just you struggling against it, or trying to look away, or trying to bury it a little bit deeper. And that's most obviously true when you're avoiding something that specifically applies to your own behavior or choices. That's usually the most difficult subject for people to study. Most of us are afraid of what we'll find in there. Afraid that we might have to admit fault, or accept someone else's faults, or change our own point of view. And that's hard to do because of pride and ego, and very often a self-righteous attitude that doesn't leave any room for self-examination. And there's a very real sense of fear that can come from having to step outside of what's familiar and into this new territory where you are the only subject that needs to be explored. And that's where this definition of courage steps into the picture. You're not forcing yourself to find something wrong with you, and you're not blaming or looking for what's wrong with someone else. You're not starting a fight with yourself or anyone else. You're just getting curious about what you could learn about you and how you could make a change for the better. And that kind of curiosity does something different in your brain. It takes you out of the threat response and into the learning process. And that's where you want to go, because you can't change what you don't look at. And most people aren't stuck because they don't know what needs to be done in their outer experience. They're stuck because they haven't been willing to see what's happening inside themselves clearly. And that does take courage. The kind that says, I'm willing to look at this, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I don't like what I see at first, even if it brings up things about me that I've been trying to avoid or ignore, and being really honest with yourself about whatever comes up here. Because when you finally stop avoiding or defending or excusing your own part in the problem, all your defense mechanisms start firing off all the feelings. And fear is a complex emotion. It can be all wrapped up in sadness and anger and feeling discouraged, and maybe most of all feeling unprotected and vulnerable. And the goal is to affirm feelings of protection and curiosity and bravery, and to start finding the encouragement that you need inside yourself. The first 3 energy centers on the chart set the foundation for change, but courage is right there at the center of the body, at the navel point, transitioning into the energy of transformation. If you want to change what you see in the world around you, you've got to start by making a meaningful change in yourself. We set off on that internal adventure looking for treasure because there is definitely gold to find here. Now the sun sits like a compass at the center of your attention as you set the intention to turn your ongoing investigation inward. Study yourself instead of everybody else. Identify the fear. Admit your part. Remember to be kind to yourself while you're doing this kind of work and stay curious about what you're going to learn here. And you want to set that target really clearly. It's easy to get carried away and onto a path that leads to how you've been done wrong or all the reasons why you think you've already done enough, but that's not going to take you where you want to go. You've come too far to let fear or complacency or pride stand in your way. And if hard feelings come up, you can practice with compassion for all parties. You can do this kind of work without beating up on yourself or anyone else. All your intentions are set on exploring anything that might still need to be processed or healed or grown in you. Right now, it is all about you. You're the only one who can do the work. It's something that you do for yourself and everyone in the world around you. And at some point, you just know that you can't avoid it anymore. And if that feels scary, you can start setting a circle of protection with the Seal of Fearlessness and a physical gesture that you can take as an oath to tell yourself the whole truth about you. The meditation for courage prepares you for all the work that lies ahead, affirming protection, growing feelings of safety, inviting the truth to come without all of your good reasons and with no excuses and no looking away. It comes with a reminder that the past has no power to cause harm here and that the future is still wide open and that what happens next is up to you. And if there is an obvious problem that is yours to fix, name it and study it, even if it feels hard to do. And because it might be hard to do, that's what makes you stronger. We've talked about this before. It's good to do hard things. That's how you prove to yourself that you can, and that's how you grow. Name any feelings that come up and consider how they relate to your part in creating or resolving the problem. And just that will almost certainly reduce the intensity of the feeling. And if you're still not sure about what needs to be done or how you feel about doing it, start asking yourself some questions. The reflection is focused on what needs to be revealed. Actively looking for the gold. With rigorous self-honesty, you start taking a personal inventory and an ongoing conversation with yourself that's focused on self-exploration and self-discovery. Getting brave enough to really look at what's happening in there. Instead of saying, this is a threat, you start asking, what is this? And that creates just enough space for you to stay present and look at what's actually happening inside you. What does this have to do with me? What are the reasons and excuses that I've been relying on to feel safe in this situation? What have I learned and what do I still need to learn? Study any resentments that you might still be holding on to and all the ways that you might be making that resentment grow. Identify any fears that have been coming up throughout the learning process and any harm that you may have caused along the way. And this is especially important if you have been through something painful. It can be easy to get almost arrogant in holding on to that pain, and even easier to keep stirring it up and spreading it around. And if you have been hurt, be gentle with yourself about that. But you also want to be honest with yourself about any part that you might have played or might still be playing. Did you play any part in stirring that initial conflict or any part in making it worse? That's the part that's so hard to look at, but it's also the part that you really can do something about and learn from. That's the part that still needs to be explored. The explorer is the archetype, and Fierce Pose is an active reminder to bravely explore the inner landscape for opportunities to make a change for the better. It's a fierce commitment that you make to yourself to intensify your efforts. If there's something that you can do, dive in and do it. Go deep. Do more. Sometimes we don't take action because we're afraid, but sometimes we don't take action because we're complacent. Courage is the cure for both fear and complacency. Curiosity drives new ideas for what is yours to change and grows the energy that you need to do something meaningful. making a conscious decision that you're not going to avoid any of it anymore. You're not going to fight against it, and you're not going to stir more trouble, because now you know that fighting usually doesn't fix it. And very often it just makes it worse. But now you're safe to explore all of it. Only good can come from this if your heart really is in the right place. Avoidance and unnecessary conflict have both been teaching your brain that certain topics are dangerous to the ego. And that makes the fear stronger. It gets more automatic and more convincing, and facing it might mean that you will have to do something about it. And part of that equation is moving out of your comfort zone to address your own behavior, your thoughts, your words, your feelings, and how they all impact what's happening inside you and in the world around you. Don't give up on that internal exploration, even if it feels scary. Keep reminding yourself that you are safe to explore here. Keep looking for the gold that can be found, and keep working to do what needs to be done. We talked about knowing what's worth fighting for last time. If there's nothing healthy or helpful that you can do, it's time to let go and surrender to what is right now. But we're actively exploring your part here, because fear isn't necessarily a stop sign. It's just a signal to do the best that you can to the best of your ability, even when it does feel scary. That's something that you can do something about. Now you're just working to find the courage to do it.